Okay, let me just share my screen. Everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, so welcome everyone to this morning, to today's session. Everything you wanted to know about marketing but were afraid to ask. A Q&A with two marketeers who are not afraid to answer. I'm Lucy Wernick, the ICG manager, and I'll be co-moderating this session with ICG member Alison Lyon. So before we begin, a big thank you to today's sponsor, Teneo Translations UK, a language service provider with a difference. Find out more at teneo-translations.com or email Chris Barella at chris@teneo-translations.com for more information. We have lots of events coming up over July. Here is a summary of what's going on, but you can go to www.theicg.co.uk for more information and for registration. All our sessions are open for cost-effective sponsorship. So if you're interested, contact me and we can discuss further on manager@theicg.co.uk. So now over to our speakers, Chantal, Cornelius and Paul Griffiths. I won't do an intro for them as they'll be introducing themselves. Please put your cameras on if possible and raise your hand if you want to ask anything or say something in the session. This is just a discursive session, not like a normal webinar. So we're really hoping that you'll all contribute as much as possible. If you feel you can't put your camera on, feel free to ask your questions in the chat box and we'll hopefully get to them as well for you. So I'm going to now hand over to Paul and Chantal. I'll stop sharing. And over to you two.
Chantal, why don't you go first?
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. Lovely to see you all. Some faces who I recognise and some who I don't. Thank you very much for coming along today. I am Chantal Cornelius. I've been running Apple Tree Marketing for very nearly 24 years. It's my 24th birthday on the 1st of August. Party time. And I specialise in working with small businesses. I work with a lot of micro businesses, so people like you with just one person in the business and up to not very many more. And I love helping my clients to simplify marketing. I often work with clients who are feeling very overwhelmed. They've got too much going on. They don't know where to turn with their marketing. And so I simplify it for them. So that's what I'm hoping to do with you and Paul over the next hour or so. Ask any questions that you have. Please don't sit there thinking, oh, it's a bit of a silly question and I might look a bit daft. Because when you ask it, somebody else will go, oh, thank goodness they asked that question, because I have the same question. So please be brave. There are no daft questions. We are here to help. So that's me. Paul, how about you?
Yes, thank you. Hello, everybody. Some very familiar faces, some people I don't know. Richard, I think we met on, did we meet on Monday at a do? So yes, yeah, hello, I'm Paul. I run a consultancy called Client Advocates. I'm a relative newbie to the ICG. I've only been a member a couple of years, and relative to Chantal's business, mine is only a babe in arms because I've only been going 11 and a half years. So yeah, a relative newbie. I work with market research businesses, agencies, freelancers, micro businesses, and I help them with their growth strategies. So I help them with commercial strategy, proposition development. I will help them with marketing, thus thus being here, and also sales and commercial kind of endeavors to generate revenue. So yeah, work with a number of people in the ICG, work with agencies up to about, I think the biggest agency I work with at the moment in market research is about 25, 30 million turnover. but the smallest is, well, the smallest is probably the same size as me because it's just me and my shed. So yes, so backing up what Chantal said, thank you very much for turning up. There are no stupid questions. Most of you who know me know that I ask as many stupid questions as I'm willing to answer them. So yeah, please do fire away and ask them, and Chantal and I will do our best to come up with some ideas.
Okay, thank you. So I'll kick off by saying, does anybody have a question?
All right, downstairs then.
If you want to, it's a relatively small group. So actually, if you want to just speak, then go for it. I don't think we need to worry about the hands up. Go on, Judith.
Okay, I'll kick off then. Why not? Hello, Paul. Is there a sort of hard and fast rule for what proportion of your budget you should spend on marketing?
Ooh.
Ooh, nice question. Paul, do you want to have a play with that one first?
Yes. So, I mean, there is no hard and fast rule. My view is, from working with research agencies over the years, that if you're not putting, between 5 and 10% of your revenue as down for marketing and sales, then you're probably under marketing and underselling yourself. But it's I've got clients that spend a lot less than that, and I've got clients that spend a lot more. It's really about to some extent about what obviously you can afford, but also what you want to try and achieve.
So you slightly punched that into marketing and sales.
Yes. Well, I mean, from small micro businesses, my view is that kind of the two things are fairly synonymous. Because you're bonkers. It's not like you've got you've got a marketing team and a sales team who are sitting in separate offices doing different things and then collaborating. It's you're all sitting here with all these different hats on. So 5 to 10% sales and marketing, I think, is kind of is probably sensible.
And does that would you expect that to change as you get as you sort of go through, you become a different business, or is that sort of an ongoing thing?
Wish we hadn't invited you.
You don't mean that.
Carry on, Paul. You're doing a great job.
So I think of course it changes year on year, and it has to change depending on the financial fundamentals of your business. I think one of the challenges for micro businesses and the sorts of businesses that most of us run is that they tend to get to a certain size and they plateau. And getting beyond that plateau, if that's what you want to do, because it maybe you don't, maybe your business is the size you want it to be, and that's fine. I think if your business is growing, then keeping it at between that 5-10% in percentage terms, actually that will mean you're absolutely spending more money year on year. So which is why I kind of I couch it in percentage terms, because I think the more you grow, arguably the split of what you're doing and within your marketing might be different, but your overall kind of approach and spend probably should remain on that track. Chantal, you've got a view, I'm sure.
Firstly, I love the fact, Judith, that you're thinking about a marketing budget. So many small businesses don't set aside any money. What I would encourage you to do as well is think about what marketing that you can do that doesn't cost very much. Mm-hmm. Things like LinkedIn. I'm not a big fan of social media at all, but LinkedIn is definitely one. If money is tight, look for networking events, online networking, especially that doesn't have an arm and a leg. And if you're not speaking, could you pop yourselves on mute? Thank you very much. So think about what else you can do that doesn't cost a lot. The key as well is measure your marketing. So you don't just need to put aside a chunk of money and go, right, I'm going to spend this, because you need to look at what's working. I encourage my clients to measure on a monthly, and if not or otherwise quarterly basis. Look at what business has come in, look at where it came from, and what you're looking for here is the first time somebody heard about you. So somebody may say, oh, I contacted you through your website. Okay, but how did you first hear about me? I know that 33% of my new business comes from me attending networking events. 33 comes from me speaking at events, and 33 comes from referrals. And most of that doesn't cost me anything at all. Very, very little. So I measure my marketing every 3 months. So I keep track of that. And then when you know where the business is coming from and what you're spending where, you can then adjust your budget. So, you know, the fact that I know exactly where my work comes from means I don't have to spend very much money on marketing. I'm lucky. I've been doing it for a lot, been running the business a long time, but it means that I can adjust and go, okay, right, well, maybe this month I will invest in going to that conference, or I will spend a bit more on a thank you present to somebody who recommended me. So it's not a fixed amount. Tweak it, adjust it, measure your marketing on a regular basis, and then you can flex it.
Thank you.
That's really helpful. Can I just ask on to sort of just build on that a little tiny bit? When you meet someone at a networking event, it can take 2 or 3 years for that to turn into actual business.
Yeah.
How do you account for that in your measuring?
Oh, fab question. I have a database, and I encourage all of you to have some sort of database, even if it's just a spreadsheet, where you record how you first met somebody, how you first heard about them. So if I have a conversation with somebody now and they're vaguely interested in doing some marketing work, I will put them onto my database and I'll record where they came from. So it might say ICG webinar, July 2024. I will then be keeping in touch with them, and if in 2 years' time they come back and go, actually, I'm ready now, then I can go back to the database and see A, how long it took me to convert them, and B, where they came from. If you're having, you don't need to put everybody onto your list, because you may just have random conversations with people, but it can actually be weirdly quite fun saying to them, how was it we first met? And it actually helps build the relationship, to kind of go back on that journey over the last 2 years. You're not always going to work it out. You might have to roughly guess. I've got occasional clients where we can't quite remember exactly how we first met, although I'm quite good at remembering lots of annoying details. So, but that's the way I would do it.
Brilliant, thank you.
So we've got a question from Stuart, and then maybe Alison will ask open up the floor to others. So it's in the chat box, you may see it anyway. Just following on from a comment Paul just made, would you say that marketing to maintain at a plateau, if that's what you want, is potentially trickier than marketing for growth? Do we want to start with Chantal, make it even, and then Paul can come in?
No, I don't think it's, hang on, let me check the question again. So you're saying, is it harder for marketing? No.
Do you want me to just voice? Yeah, sorry. I only put it next. I didn't want to interrupt you, but it was that sort of thought. If you're going for growth, you sort of push as much into it, don't you? Whereas if you just try and sort of like, oh, this is a happy amount that I'm at now. Yeah. You don't want to market too much in case you get too much more coming in, but then there's the risk that you don't market enough and you sort of drop off. So that was my...
That's the tricky bit, actually, is staying off the feast and famine roller coaster, as I call it, and making sure that you've got a consistent amount. So with me in my business, been doing it for a long time, lots of people just randomly phone me and say, I've heard of you, can we do some work together? That's lovely, but I still have to maintain a base level. So I put out my newsletter, my email newsletter, Scribbles, goes out on the 3rd Wednesday of every month, regardless. There are certain networking events that are in my diary that I will go to every single month because they're brilliant for me. So it's about, for that, it's about finding out, you know, what's the consistent level that you need to do, and it's about making sure that you do it consistently. Even when I'm on holiday, Scribbles gets written. It might get written 2 or 3 weeks in advance. In fact, where are we? It's the 4th of July. I wrote the July issue of Scribbles about 4 days ago, because I was, in fact, possibly even longer ago, I was sitting in a hotel in between meetings, and I wrote it, so it's almost ready to go. So plan ahead so that when you get busy or you get ill or you go on holiday, the base level marketing can keep going, because otherwise you stop and then the flow of new clients stops, and then you have to rush around and do loads of marketing, and then you get loads more clients coming in, and then you haven't got time to do any more marketing. So it's I'm done. So yeah, think about what you can do consistently to keep things ticking along. Paul, what can you add?
Yeah, no, I mean, I would thoroughly endorse all of that. I mean, I use I mean, you were talking about a database. I use a CRM system. So I use the free version of HubSpot, which I love. I plugged it in about 4 years ago during COVID, because I didn't have anything else to do for a couple of months. It's completely changed and revolutionized my business. I used to run off the back of a spreadsheet. But what I now do is every single interaction I have with anybody at a conference, networking event, things like this, it's plugged into my email. It's all tracked through HubSpot, so I can know how long somebody takes, and I've segmented my customer journey into, right, someone's just met me, doesn't know me from Adam, through to, oh, now they're giving me work. And what I'm able to do is I'm able to track through that, therefore, how long it takes me on average to take somebody through the customer journey. I can also track my deals on there in terms of the proposals and the things I'm quoting for. So I can track my deal success, I can track my deal size. And it comes back to actually what you were saying, Stuart. You know, I know that at the moment it takes me about 9 months to get on average from no one's ever heard of me to, oh gosh, you're commissioning me. So it's about a 9-month process. Some are quick and some are really good on average. And I know what my average project size is. And to Chantal's point she was making earlier, because I'm tracking what I'm doing and what's more effective and less effective, I can then dial up or dial down things so that, you know, when, give you a good example, when Trussonomics hit, I took a view, right, okay, I need to have more conversations and do more of this stuff, because I figure the economy is going to go down the toilet, and therefore I need to up the volume of activity in my business, which I did, and actually it served me quite well. So I think having that visibility and tracking stuff through a CRM system is a really, really good way of maintaining a plateau or dialing it up if you want to go for growth.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks, Paul. That was also a question. So if either of you have any other recommendations on databases, but the person who asked is happy with HubSpot as a suggestion. They were using one they're not happy with. The next question is specific to us. What sort of marketing activities do you think work well for researchers like us on LinkedIn? Paul, do you want to start with this, and then Chantal?
Sure. So I think, I mean, the first thing to say about LinkedIn is it's got to be authentic and it's got to be personalized, especially for micro businesses like us, where essentially we're selling ourselves. So I think personalized content is quite good. Making sure you've got your tone of voice and kind of coming across as yourself. And then I always recommend a mix of stuff. So say, for instance, you're doing 10 posts. I would suggest sort of 7 of those posts can be stuff that is curated by you. So it's interesting articles, it's interesting stuff around the things that you are interested in and wanting to demonstrate your expertise in. So if, for instance, you wanted to grow and make yourself known in the world of financial services, then you'd want to be curating and using other people's content, but showing it and talking about it around financial services, for instance. And if you do those 7, I think you then need to do 2 of your own bits of posts or bits of content. That might be a little blog piece. It might be a thought piece around a particular research technique or around a particularly interesting project you're doing, or something that's been that you think that your network is going to be interested and engaged by. And so that's 9 of the 10, and then that gives you the permission to do 1 post, which is really pretty much, I'm brilliant, get in touch. But you don't get to do the I'm brilliant, get in touch if you haven't done the other 9 and look to serve your market and you serve your network first. So that would be my view. And in terms of curating that content, I do things like I follow Green Book, the MRS, Quirks. I've got a load of websites And I go, if I'm looking for content, I go sniffing and looking through those to find stuff that I think is going to be interesting and useful to my network and the people that hopefully kind of engage with my content on LinkedIn.
Brilliant.
Cool.
This is probably a bit more like a-
Two thoughts to add to everything that Paul said is fabulous. Do all of that. When he says 10 posts, don't be thinking you have to do 10 a day or even 10 a week. This could be 10 a month. I mean, you know,
Oh, yeah.
don't go steady. If you're just starting out with LinkedIn, 1 a week to start with is fine, because otherwise you're going to run out of steam very, very quickly. Two thoughts. What were my two thoughts? Oh, yeah. I always encourage clients to think about their own content in terms of what they're doing with clients. I was working with a client the other day and she told me about, she's a coach. She was working with a bunch of executives in the city. She was telling me how she'd got them all to relax at the beginning of the session by a particular exercise that she used. And it was about, it was something to do with five points that she got them working on. I said, well, that's fabulous. Write a LinkedIn post about it. So she did. She then realized that she'd been out for a walk that morning and she'd taken a photo of a goose and 5 goslings down by the river. I said, perfect, put that picture in. So take your phones and your cameras everywhere you go and take photos of whatever you see. I have the most weird and wonderful collection of photos, all sorts of random stuff, including lots of kittens in my kitchen. And every now and then, if I'm doing a post, I'll go, right, what have I got? Oh, that'll work. It's about making it more personal and it's about grabbing people's attention. So cute, fluffy goslings, nothing to do with the exercise that she did, but it just gets the attention. So that's the first point. Second point is think, as well as putting out content, think about spending time commenting on other people's comments and posts. If you've got a potential client who you are quietly stalking, wooing, follow them, go and see what they're talking about and then make comments. When you make comments, don't just put, oh, that's very interesting, or oh, that's nice, because LinkedIn won't be interested in that. They don't care. You need to put a considered comment of, interesting article, Paul, what do you think about such and such? You're getting into a conversation with somebody. We were talking about this before we came on air, and the importance of making it conversational. You're talking to somebody online. Another tip with that is when you comment on somebody's post, tag them in the comment. Now, I know it sounds a bit weird. So, for example, if Paul has put up a post or an article, I go and comment on it and I'll go, at Paul Griffith, very interesting article. What do you think about blah, blah, blah? He will then respond to me and tag me. LinkedIn sees that as a two-way conversation. And they go, oh, that's interesting. I'll show this to more people. It also lets Paul and I know that we're talking to each other. It's an easier way of doing it. Oh, and point 3, just to chuck in another one, take it offline as quickly as you can. Don't keep the conversation on LinkedIn, because if you've got somebody who's really interested in you, pick up the phone. Don't try and set dates and arrange meetings over LinkedIn. Get on the phone, have a conversation with what they actually need.
Thank you.
Does that help, Debbie? Has that answered your question? Yay,
Good
thumbs up.
there. So Carlos, you've asked 3 questions. I'm going to start with the first one. Where should we invest more time, energy and money? Social media, conferences, speaking opportunity, email, letters? And if the answer is social media, should we go beyond LinkedIn and go on to Instagram? So I guess it's, how do we use our time effectively?
Yeah. Can I go first?
Go for it.
Please.
Great answers. Okay, where should you, so question 1, social media, no. Conferences, yes. Speaking opportunities, yes. Email newsletters, yes. If social media, should we go beyond LinkedIn, go to Instagram? No. There we go, short and simple.
Why do you say no to social media, Chantal?
What she said.
Thank you, Paul. And that's really funny because on my screen, Paul and I are next to each other, and when he did that, he thrown it right at me. So the reason I say no to social media other than LinkedIn is that you are all providing a service to businesses. They are not going to be looking for a potential supplier of your service on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, X, whatever it's called these days, Facebook. They will only be spending time looking for your services on LinkedIn. They may go and play on TikTok and Instagram at the weekend, but they're not looking for your services there. So if you want to play there, go and play. But I mean, I actually don't. I don't use any of those because I don't want people to find me on. I think I am on Instagram. I haven't posted there for years. I don't want people to find pictures of my kittens and go, oh, she's not taking life seriously enough. So I keep away from it. So yeah, they're not going to buy you through social media. When I mentioned earlier where my business comes from, networking, speaking, and referrals, that's where you should put your time and effort. That's how people buy from service businesses. They need to meet you. They need to see you in action, which is why networking and speaking work brilliantly. When somebody invites you to host a webinar and answer questions on your area of expertise, go, yes, of course, I'd love to help. It's all about marketing. Email newsletters are also really good. I talk about an ABC of marketing. A is ask for referrals, B is business networking, which includes speaking, and C is content. Email newsletters are a great way of keeping in touch with people after you've met them, after they've heard about you. And same with LinkedIn. So everything Paul was saying about the content, that's useful to say. That's me. Paul, do you want to add anything to question 1 for Carlos?
No. I mean, I would entirely endorse everything you said. I think, you know, we're all micro businesses. We've all got limited retirement resources. Spend it where it's going to be best give return, and that's not TikTok and Insta at the moment. It might be in 20 years' time, you know, but at the moment for B2B, no, it's LinkedIn, and it's, you know, absolutely LinkedIn, and it's newsletters, and it's conferences, and it's speaking events. Everything that Chantal said, I couldn't agree more with.
Oh, that was lucky.
Lucy, do you want to keep going with that question?
Okay,
Shall
yeah.
I do the second?
Okay, so yeah, it's a question about conferences, about how best to network. It's quite interesting what Carlos put. So I used to be a client and I would often spend my time avoiding agencies. I feel a lot of clients in conferences are also trying to avoid vendors. So when you're on the other side, what's the best way? Shall we start with Paul? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I love conferences. I find conferences, I'm an extrovert, so I would find them good fun, but I find them very valuable for my business too. So you know, my marketing budget, some of that is definitely allocated to going to conferences, and market research conferences. So, you know, I'll go along to the MRS bits and bobs. I'll go to Quirks. I was at Ephemera last week, which is the market research society for the pharmaceutical and healthcare businesses. I was giving a talk there. Yep, there is inevitably a certain amount of, you know, oh gosh, I'm turning my badge around so that agencies can't come and tap me up. But it's the same thing as being on LinkedIn. It's about being authentic. If you go up to somebody and you make a beeline for them, and it's like, hello, you're from, I don't know, Lego, and I really want to do some work with Lego, so can I talk to you about Lego and how I can help your business? Then yeah, they're going to understandably run the opposite direction and go, honestly, what an arse. If you sidle up in the coffee store and go, oh, how are you? Enjoying conference? Yada, yada, yada. Yeah, no, it's, yeah, yada, da, 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 da. Oh, who do you work for? Oh, okay. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, no, I used to do some work for one of your competitors, etc., etc., etc. You can kind of get around that, you know. I mean, Quirks has a client only area where the clients go and hide, and you see people kind of hanging around trying to bump in to people as they come out, and it's like, honestly it's quite sad. But yeah, I think it's a question of just kind of, for a conference, having your plan of the people that you want to try and bump into, and then bumping into them in such a way that it doesn't feel like you are stalking them or going into your sales pitch in the first 3 seconds, honestly.
Richard's got a hand up. Richard, is it a question related to this one? And you're on mute, I'm afraid, so we can't hear you.
Okay, I'm going to overshare here and say that Fortunately, I've been happily married for the last 23 years, but I was crap at dating. And to me, the whole business of sales, a bit as Paul was just describing, it's that avoiding looking like the sad guy who's kind of in the corner, who's really desperate to meet somebody. How do you, is that a psychological thing, or is it just kind of, I don't know, like, because most of my business, is kind of through referrals and through connections I made when I was with an agency, and I've always struggled to bring in these kind of meet these new people out there. And we were talking the other day about this, Paul. Is there a way of making it kind of less awkward so that I don't feel like I'm kind of trying to date all over again?
Can I jump in here, because I've just been running a networking masterclass for a client of techie introverts, which was great fun. The advice I always give is get the focus onto the other person as quickly as you can. So if somebody says, "Oh, hello, what do you do?" I say, "I'm in marketing. How about you?" So I ask, and I then start gently asking them questions. If you're nervous about going into a room and talking to people, look around the room and find the other person who is hiding in the corner, pretending to be on their phone, because they're even more nervous than you are. And they will love you if you go over and go, "Everything okay? Fancy a cup of coffee? Can we have a chat?" And it's not about blasting and going, "Hello, my name's Chantal, shake my hand, and I'm going to tell you about my business." It's you're just having a chat. I've got clients who've had amazing conversations in the lunch queue, in the coffee queue, in the toilets, just, and it's just like, "What did you think of the last speaker? And are you enjoying today? And how's it going? And how far have you traveled today?" I've actually, I think it's still on my website, many years ago, I wrote 101 alternatives to the "what do you do" question. So go and hunt that out. And my favorites are things like, "Would you like a glass of wine?" "No, thank you. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. It's far too early." So think of conversation that you can start of like, oh, the room's a bit weird, isn't it? Or it's the sun shining up. Anything that's not business.
It's bizarre, because I spend most of my working life asking people, "Tell me about what you do."
Don't do it at conferences. The other advice is I'm with my other hat on. I'm actually I'm having an exhibition stand at a conference in London tomorrow. When I'm not doing marketing, I'm involved in something called the Professional Speaking Association. And we've been invited to sponsor an event tomorrow, which is 4 speakers. So there are going to be about 200 speakers there. It's an all-day event. They're hearing other speakers speak about how to be a better speaker. And I'm there promoting the PSA. So I've got the stand, but my other advice at conferences is ask what else you can do. So they didn't have room for me on main stage. I'll do that next year. But they're having something called Ask the Experts, which is where some of us get invited to sit at a table and people come and sit with us and ask us questions. So if you are a bit more introverted, do that. It actually gives you better conversations. There'll be 10 people at the table. I can have good conversations with them. And then when I'm on the stand, it'll just be a case of, "Hello, morning, how are you getting on? Everything all right? Need anything? Do you know where the toilets are?" Not, "Hello, do you want to buy the service?" Again, keep it relaxed and conversational.
I think, just as a build on this, my observation is that some of us on this thing are qualitative interviewers. This is 101 when it comes to qual interviewing. So it's maybe going to those conferences and not going, "I've got to sell myself." It's, I'm going as a qual researcher to try and engage and find out lots of interesting things about people and make them feel good about themselves. And as a result of that, I may well come up and start to build some relationships, which will, develop me work over the longer term. It's the good dinner party guest test, I always say. It's, if you go to a dinner party, it's probably showing my age talking about dinner parties, but the idea at the end of it is that you've asked the person sitting next to you a load of questions and they walk away going, "Gosh, what an interesting man." And actually, I've not really told them anything necessary about myself, but I found out lots about them, and therefore they think I'm interesting.
I did it randomly once at a train station. I bumped into somebody I knew, and I just asked him questions for 10 minutes while we were out waiting for the train. And afterwards he said, that was a fascinating conversation. I was like, I didn't say anything. I just asked you questions. So yeah, questions.
Yeah.
Do we need to move on to there was the third part of Carlos's question about SEO?
Yeah, that would be great. Search engine optimization, how do you go about it? Is it worth it?
Can I do my really short answer?
Yeah.
No. No, it isn't. It's not worth it. There are two things your websites need to be optimized for: your company name and your own name. Because you're going to go, why? Because when people are searching for your service, if somebody searches for marketing consultancy on Tinternet, they will get about 69 billion responses. I don't get any business through my website. It doesn't happen that way, and it's not made that way. My website is for people who have met me at a networking event, heard me speak, or been recommended to me. It's the C part of the ABC. It's the content. People will go and look at it to go, right, is this person who they say they are? Are they as good as the person who's recommended me? So if people are recommending you, or they're looking because they've met you, they will Google your name or your company name. So that's the only thing that my website is optimized for, and that's what I'd recommend for you. It's just, otherwise it's just too competitive and it's too expensive. Paul, please disagree with me.
No, I'm not. I'm not going to. I'm not going to. I couldn't agree more. I think SEO for small micro businesses like us is a complete and utter waste of time and money. I genuinely do, and I have never done any SEO on my own website either. Like Chantal, I don't, in 11 years, I don't think I've ever received one single piece of work as a result of my website. It's an important place for me to. I use it as a repository for interesting stuff that I've written, videos, stuff like that. It's got a nice recommendations page on it where I've been lucky enough to bribe clients to say nice things about me. But essentially, it's a port of call for people to go, that bloke Paul Griffiths, who I met at a conference, or I saw, I check him out. Oh yeah, no, he looks like he's actually a real person, and that's a real business, and it's no more. Again, if you've got lots and lots of budget and lots of time, and you're a big brand, yes, then fine, but not for the scale and the size of the businesses that we operate, I don't think.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, the next one is a really interesting one, and we've had a few sort of threads on the e-group that have been related to this. If I'm a painful introvert and procrastinator when it comes to marketing, should I just get over it? And personally, I'd be really interested in your thoughts on, if that's your recommendation, what techniques, tips, how should we get over it? What can we do to stop procrastinating? Or is it worth outsourcing my marketing? And if so, how do I find a good outsource? Who's first? It's Paul, isn't it? I think.
So gosh, that's a really good question. And am I going to tell the truth? I'm going to tell the truth.
Do it.
So my view is that yes, there are things you can outsource. So I outsource bits and pieces of my marketing chain. So my LinkedIn content, I have somebody who helps me curate some of that, and I pay them to do that. Small sums of money, but it's a very hopeful service, and it helps me save time and effort. So I think there are definitely bits of your business and your marketing chain that you can outsource to third parties if you choose. The reality, however, is that you are selling yourself. You are selling you as a person, and you need to build up the trust and the rapport with people so that they want to go, I want to give you work. And I don't think you can outsource that. And even if you are a procrastinator and you outsource your stuff, I would be very, very careful, because all that will happen is you will continue to procrastinate, because an outsourced marketing service will still need your advice, opinions, views on what you want to do and how you want to do it and when you want to do it. And if you're procrastinating about that as well, then all you're going to do is spend money on a third party who can't do a good job because you're procrastinating. So I'm afraid I would say outsource bits of it if you need to, but understand that if you want to run a micro business, you have to be out in the marketplace and you have to make some decisions.
Yeah.
That's my view.
Okay, and Stuart, is your question related to this, or can it wait until Chantal's? Okay, cool. And Paul, do you, the other part of that was, what tips would you give us procrastinators for just doing it, you know?
So I am an arch procrastinator. I'm also very lazy. And those two things together are pretty toxic when it comes to running a running a relationship. They're pretty bad for running a relationship, but they're also pretty bad for running a business. I am anally organized. So part of the reason I have a CRM system is my CRM system, I write tasks into it and it pings me in the morning and goes, oi, email such and such, ask them to that event. And I kind of, because I do what I'm told, I do it. So build the systems around you to make sure that if you do procrastinate or you have got things around time management or around prioritization, that you're building them in. So between 8:15 and 8:30 every morning is blocked out in my diary because I'm doing what Chantal told me to do, and I'm going onto LinkedIn and commenting on a load of other people's stuff because that drives more engagement with my posts, for instance. So I've got that blocked in my diary and I am pretty rigorous about doing it. So if you do find trouble kind of prioritizing this stuff or making decisions, use some time management and some self-management systems. Use your MarTech platform, however that looks, whether it's a spreadsheet or a HubSpot or whatever else, and get that to manage you so you don't have to manage yourself so much.
Okay. And Chantal?
Oh, okay. Remind me, what was the question? Which one are we on?
We're on the question about if I'm an introvert and procrastinating when it comes to marketing, should I just get over it? And again, we'd be interested in your tips for if we're going to get over it, pull ourselves together. How do we do that? Or should we outsource, and how do we find a good outsource?
Okay, yeah, everything that Paul said. Being an extrovert and being somebody who loves marketing, it would be very easy for me to say, oh, just get over it. And I know that isn't going to help because I work with a lot of introverts. It's about figuring out what marketing you are comfortable doing. So if you are on the introversion side, if you are super, super nervous about going networking and you are petrified of going and speaking on stage, then don't offer to speak on stage and look at what networking you can do, like being on a Zoom call with your camera turned off. But as Paul said, you can't outsource networking to somebody else. It just doesn't work. Networking works for service businesses, so you do need to find a way of doing it. And if networking online is the way, that's good.
Okay.
What else can I add to that? Yeah, and again, I completely agree with Paul in that if you outsource your marketing, you still need to be involved. Over the years, I've outsourced some of my marketing, but I still want to see what content is being written and who's saying what about me. And so, yeah, you can't just pass it over. I'm going to kind of tie in with finding somebody to outsource. I think if you're an introvert and you're a procrastinator, you need somebody who is going to tell you what to do and then nudge you in the right direction to do it. You don't want a marketing company that says, well, this is what I think you should do, now go off and do it, because you won't. You'll procrastinate about other stuff. So you need somebody who's going to kind of walk you through it and be there on a regular basis to say, how are you getting on? Have you done it yet? Is there a problem? What other help do you need? So it's actually about working in partnership with them. I'm probably not allowed to promote myself on this call, am I? So I probably should work with Paul. Talk to Paul.
I'd say I think Chantal's probably a good person for some people to talk to.
Well, we're the ICG, so we'll say, would you be interested, guys, in us setting up accountability pods?
That's actually a really good idea as well. I have an accountability buddy who I meet up with her pretty much every month at the moment. We have a day together and we beat each other up about each other's businesses. And so having And I know that if I don't do something that I've said I'm going to do, Donna will be on my case going, hang on, you said you were going to do this. Is this important or not? So having, and it's not necessarily about having a coach in that sense, it's about having somebody else who's running a similar business to you, who can be there to support and gently nag and say, come on, what next?
Yeah, it's
And
definitely something we're thinking of.
Sorry, Lucy, go on.
Yeah, just to endorse what Alison was saying, that behind the scenes we are thinking of that because of the conversations that we're hearing on the e-group, similar to our buddy scheme, but slightly different. So go on, Paul.
No, I was saying I have a coach. I have a coach. I've had a coach for years. She's brilliant. She's there, for all sorts of reasons, but one of them, a lot of the conversations we're having and do have and have had over the years have been around me coming and chewing over a problem or an issue I've got with my business, possibly about my motivation or lack thereof, or whatever it is that I'm troubled with in that particular time. And again, it may not come out of your marketing budget, but I would urge everybody to kind of, invest in themselves in some shape or form, whether that's through an accountability person and buddy, or a coach, or, we all, none of us are perfect, and none of us are able to do all of these things in a brilliant way all of the time. And that's okay. That's perfectly normal. And I think it's also fine to accept that, paying for somebody or getting somebody to help you out on a regular organized way is also pretty good investment for you and your business.
Definitely. I have an army of support around me, of coaches, mentors, all sorts, not all paid for. Some of them we kind of work in a contra, but yeah, definitely worth having.
And Chantal, I love your suggestion that if there's somebody you work with well, a colleague or something, ask for recommendations from others who've got marketing support, but just don't look for someone online. It can. Okay, Lucy, over to you, and Stuart.
Well, Stuart, yes, Stuart, waiting patiently with your hand up.
That's all right. And I feel a bit bad because that was a really good big picture conversation. Mine's really nitty gritty LinkedIn question. So I have my no research company page on LinkedIn, and then there's Stuart Green on LinkedIn. So yesterday I was posting about support for the Aura Working Well Together Charter. Should I post that as Stuart Green? Should I post that as no research and then share it as Stuart Green? What do you find works best in terms of what content to put where?
Is it me first, or you?
Yeah, Chantal.
It's me. Okay. I would probably put it in both places. I might tweak it slightly, because just thinking LinkedIn, it's going to be the same audience, isn't it, really? So I would probably put it in both places, but I wouldn't do it on the same day. I would maybe put it on your page today and your company page next week, possibly with a different photo, possibly with slightly tweaking the content so it looks a bit different. It's quite an easy way of putting out content without too much work, doing it in the two places. Personally, I've always found that my personal page is what gets noticed. I think my VA, my marketing assistant, puts something onto my company page once a month based on the newsletter that I send out, and we don't get much activity there. But on my personal page, that's where I get more, because company pages, LinkedIn set them up a few years ago and went, oh, this is the next best thing. And then they lost interest in them. So you have to work quite hard, I think, to get enough followers. So I would focus on your own page and then add it to the company page if you want to. Paul, anything?
No, I mean, I would agree with that. I think LinkedIn works as a channel because it's about the personal relationships you're building, and I think that comes better from your personal page. I mean, I'm not nearly as rigorous as Chantal, so when I post on my personal page, it's automatically copied over and posts on my company page at the same time, on the same day, with the same picture. because
But you're automating it, aren't you? So
well, I am. I'm to some extent I am automating it, but I think it's also it's also about the fact that it's too bloody complicated if I'm trying to run different posts on different days with the same folks. Like, I haven't got the time nor the inclination. Yeah, and Stuart, probably if you look at your audiences, I don't know how many you've got, personal connections versus company connections, but in most instances, personal connections tend to be about 8 or 10 times what they are on your company page. You go where your audience is, and your audience is around your personal page. So that's where I would focus if I were you.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys. There was another question came in, kind of related to the discussion about LinkedIn and getting to know you and being authentic, but more along the lines of when promoting your business. One of the things that quite a few of us struggle with is we don't just do one thing. We're not niche. We're not really specialist. So how do we stand out if we're really good across a number of different kind of areas, if there's no one big thing that we do? Is it Chantal to start on this, or is it Paul?
I think it's Chantal.
Okay, my advice, if you do an awful lot and you don't specialize in one thing, I'm gonna be a bit blunt here and say you need to specialize. Because if you're trying to promote a huge range of services, then you could end up working with a huge range of clients, but the marketing gets very complicated because you're promoting loads of different services to loads of different companies. I would actually encourage you to specialize as much as you can. It may be that you narrow it down from 10 services to 3, because that way your marketing can be much more focused. You can identify exactly the right market for each one, the language that you need to use in your marketing. It makes your marketing much simpler and much more cost effective and much cheaper. So I'm afraid to say you need to think about being more specialized. When I set my business up all those years ago, I was working for a printing company, Oxford, doing all their marketing. And I went to see a business mentor. I did a one-day course about how to run a business. And I had about 3 or 4, maybe 5 different business ideas. And he said, pick one. I said, but I can do all of this. He said, pick one. So I did. And I actually picked copywriting, which is what I spent the first few years of my business doing, just writing content for clients. And that's what got my name out, because otherwise I was going to be trying to promote too much. So obviously the business has moved on since then, but picking one thing to start with really helped in the first few years.
Thanks.
Again, it's annoying we're agreeing on everything. I absolutely, one of the things, and some of the people on this call will recognize this, I am pretty militant about making sure my clients specify and specialize. The whole point about strategy and commercial strategies is as much about deciding what you're not going to do as what you are going to do. And good commercial strategy, especially in micro businesses like us with restricted resources, time, inclination, trying to be everything to everybody is a complete and utter waste of time, because you will spread yourself so thinly. There's 4 questions I say people have got to answer when they're setting their commercial strategy. The first of them is, who is my ideal target client? And that is really, really specific. It's down to job title, geography, sector, industry, typology of firmographic information. You have got to be really, really specific around who you're marketing to, because to Chantal's point, if you're not, you're throwing a load of stuff against the wall and you're hoping some of it sticks. Whereas if you say, right, actually, I'm going to go after small to medium-sized market research, heads of insight in insurance businesses, then actually you can go and find content that's relevant to them. You can identify who those people are through LinkedIn or conferences or a networking or else, and you can send that content to those individuals. If you're doing something which is, I'm going to talk to all heads of insight about everything to do with qual, then, nothing you're going to produce is going to be of any real relevance to them, because they'll have seen it all before and it's all very vanilla. So specify.
Thanks,
Yeah.
that was helpful. Thank you.
Richard, did you want
Yeah,
to follow
I'm
on?
just going to come back with Paul. Is there a difference between the work that you do and the work that you're trying to do? So
Yes.
if you have a client who comes to you and say, oh, okay, I'd like you to look at tomato ketchup in Venezuela, and you've got time to do it, even if your main focus is insurance businesses, then you just, if assuming you've got the capacity, you just take the work.
I would, I mean, I've always maintained if the day rate's right, I'll mow the lawns. So I'm a pragmatist at heart. Absolutely. What you are saying you want to do and what you do might be two different things. My business, most of my marketing, 90% of my marketing is directed at market research agencies and people like us. Actually, 50% of my business and revenue is generated by working with end clients, big brands and big, heads of insight in big, hairy, scary corporations. But I don't really market that because that comes to me through different channels and I don't need to market it. So what I do and who I say I am, guess what? It's marketing. It may not all actually be true or align entirely. I think it's absolutely fine to be pragmatic, but decide on what you want to be famous for and market to that.
And I would also add, be careful if money is a bit tight, if you've not got of business, it can be very tempting to take on anything. And I've been there and done it, and I've taken on work where I thought, yeah, okay, I can do this, and it never works out that well because it's not what I'm passionate about. I'm maybe not qualified enough to do it, or it's an industry I'm not that interested in, or it's a client who actually turns out to be a complete pain in the backside, and then they don't pay properly. So it's for me, it's you've got to weigh up the pros and cons very carefully. So for instance, if a client comes along to me and says, oh, could you do this for me at a discount? My answer now is no, because this is what I charge, and I don't want that client to tell other people, oh yeah, Chantal will give you a discount if you ask her, because she won't. Also, I don't want people to think that I do certain types of work when I don't. I'm known for working with coaches, consultants, and trainers, and speakers. And if people come along and go, oh, but actually, could you market this product for me? No, I can't. I've tried in the past, it just doesn't work. So just be careful about what else you take on. If you're really interested in doing work in ketchup in Venezuela and it involves going to Venezuela, then go for it, Richard. Absolutely. But if it's not your thing, just be careful about what you take on.
Brilliant. So we've got 2 minutes. So any last questions? I know some of you haven't got your cameras on, so I can't see if jumping up and down with a question. Anybody?
Where did the time go?
Yeah, 2 minutes to go. Any last questions? Any comments to pull it all together?
Could I chuck in a comment, because I know there've been a few in the chat, and just thank you everyone for coming along and being brave and for asking your questions. If you haven't been brave enough to ask a question, come and find me on LinkedIn and go and look for Paul. And I've actually had some LinkedIn connection requests already that have come through while we've been on the call. So if you have another question, please come and ask me. Please find me, send me an email, pick up the phone. Always happy to chat. So.
Yeah, and look, same for me. I'm on the ICGE group. You can drop me a note on that. I'm on LinkedIn. I will be at the Christmas party. I'll be at the Christmas party, but I'll be at the summer party. Is it next week?
It is. Yes, exactly a week's time, everybody.
Yep, I'll be at the summer party next Thursday. Honestly, WhatsApp, phone, email, post, always happy to be communicated with and to communicate. So just ask questions.
Cool. We've got one raised hand. Liz, what would you want to say?
I was just going to say, I think this has been really helpful. I've been sitting here thinking, oh, shall I ask this, that, or the other questions? And a lot of the questions I had have been asked already, but it's also given me a boot up the sort of proverbial backside to think, yeah, I do actually have a USP and I probably should be talking about that. So I think this has been very helpful. Thanks very much for your really valuable comments for us all.
Well,
No, no,
welcome.
you're
Thank you,
welcome.
Liz. I'm glad it's been helpful for you. It's really cool to hear.
It really has. So I want to say thank you on behalf of the ICG to both Chantal and Paul. Thank you so much for your time. Looks like everybody enjoyed it. I certainly did as well. We'll circulate the recording so more can learn from this, and hope to see lots of you at the summer party and future events. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Dean.
Thanks,
Thank you very
guys.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go and vote.
Bye-bye.
Go and vote.
Thank you.
Cheers,
Bye.
guys.
Cheers.